All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of 4 Point Play podcast with your co host, myself, Matt Heiser, and always alongside me.
Hey, it's Robert Alfonso Jr. with Baseline and Sideline. BTS Report. Matt, what's going on?
Well, we had a great first week, I thought, of Fall League. We had 20 teams in the building from three different states. Um, like, the crowd was impressive. Like, I had no idea we were going to have so many people show up to come watch Fall League basketball on Sunday. It was great. So, what was kind of some takeaways for you?
Well, that was one of them, certainly like walking through, at one point I walked through court one where you was at the station, and then I went down, and then I was going back to my court two, and I just so happened to turn, and I was like, wait a minute, there's a ton of people in here. And then you know, then to know that this is such a football town, that with the Falcons at home on a beautiful Sunday. I mean, we had a high school atmosphere in both gyms in terms of energy and from both the players, some of those friendly coaches who are friends of the program coaches who were really trying to get after those kids, and certainly the fans. It was phenomenal to see, and just the one another thing that stood out is the way these kids competed. These we were sharing scores in terms of who did what. I mean, I had some game going to sudden death. We had some real tight ball games. Another one, just went down to the wire. You had some, nail biters that within single digits. So it just showed that teams are ready to compete, and we provided solid matchups that no matter whether a team lost by 30 at some point, because we did have some blowouts, they got something out of it. They learned something. And even we got a team or two that says, in the next two that they're showing up, they're bringing a separate ball club.
Yeah. I aside from the crowd, like we had just had kids, like you said, that got after it, which was we created an environment that kids competed in, and we had some colleges, multiple colleges in the building. That was cool to see. I actually had a couple kids that came up to me on court one, like, "Oh, this coach that was here asked me for my phone number." So that was cool. Had some of that going on, but just a lot of positive environment, as I would say, and some good matchups. I mean, I the game of the day was down on your court. Sound like with the sudden death game that I'll let you speak on, but the matchup that I mean, from a prestige standpoint, I mean Hamilton Heights and Newton lived up to the hype. It was a great matchup, but that as far as like environment goes, we had a game that was Therrell and Union Grove that I just like during a timeout, I was like, you know what? It's kind of loud in here. Let me turn around for a second. And like there was just a ton of people in the bleachers, and I was like, this feels like a December varsity basketball game right now. And so had a great crowds, great competition. We had some really good players. What are kind of some key moments you could say for you?
Well, one of those moments, like you just mentioned, the game of the day was, Newton versus East Coweta, which certainly brought a almost late February environment between those two. I mean, both teams, regardless of how who's all there and who's not there, those who came to compete. You had Jared White, who certainly is a shot maker, and was filling it up. And then East Coweta's David Askew, good lord, he's a name that people will certainly hear about this year in Royal. Has him, Harper Rife, those guys came and competed. Ironically, they even beat a Wilson Academy that, you know, is talented and has a roster full of size. David Askew had his breakout moment as well with them. So, the one thing that I saw is the growth of David Askew this week and the growth of who he was as a player and what he could certainly do when I say alongside, be able to hopefully take some heat off of the attention that Harper Rife is going to get, and being able to dominate on the interior on both ends of the floor with all the energy. Newton, again, needed overtime, and again a sudden death free throw shot by Jared White to really again close out the game and end it. So that's the type of stuff that I really enjoyed watching.
Yeah. I mean, first time I saw David Askew was actually well, not this past, but the summer before. They
Hmm.
came up to Collins Hill, and obviously the name then was Quez Williams for East Coweta, who's now at
Hmm.
Odessa in Texas. And like I was like, man, this other big kid's really good too. And he was really, he was thin, he was young, and then they came back this summer to Collins Hill, and I was like, oh man, is like he's put on a ton of muscle, and he uses it well. He rebounds well outside of his own area, and they have this unique kind of like two-man game that they want now at East Coast where Harper Rife, shooting from anywhere, because the guy doesn't miss, and then if he does happen to miss, you got David Askew cleaning up the glass for putbacks, and it's just it's a tough one-two punch, Let's see, but I mean, the best player I thought from the league on Sunday was from Hamilton Heights, and I know you didn't get a chance to
Hmm.
see him, but holy smokes, when they hit the floor for that first game for warm-ups, I think we had the whole southwest side of Atlanta in the gym just to watch him warm up, and it was just like it looked like a college team out there. I mean, they got I think it was seven. I think was the number. They had seven guys with Division I college offers, and they looked the part. I mean, they hit the floor for warm-ups, but they had a little point guard who was probably about 6 foot tall named B.J. Bradford, who is just the orchestrator of that whole team. He's got an offer to Tennessee Martin currently, and it just felt like any time Newton or Wilson Academy made some sort of effort to get back into the game, he did something to just flip the script again and just totally open the game back up for Hamilton Heights. And they're just I mean, as much talent as they have, they're just a very different team without him on the floor. And that's not taking anything away from everybody else, but I think he's just that good of a point guard, despite what Rick Pitino might say. And and like he just runs the team. And the dude
Hmm.
hit some crazy tough shots for 6 foot, and couldn't say enough good things about him. I'm looking forward to see them come back in 2 weeks to Fall League and see if he can repeat because I was extremely impressed.
Well, walking through the gym, like I said, I just so happened to be walking when they were warming up, and I turned and looked and said, "That's not a high school team. Like they got all that length and size. They were, and we had just come off the JUCO tour, the GCAA tour. They was as tall as many of those teams on during that tour that we just came off of. So
Yeah.
I was impressed, and I'm looking forward to seeing them come in 2 weeks.
And they had a guy who got hurt in the first game against Newton, who I was looking forward to see play. So I hope he recovers well and everything goes okay. But Tron Talley, who's a 6'3" senior who recently committed to Division I, North Alabama. He got hurt early in the second half of that first game against Newton. But I mean, long, athletic, a great defender. I mean, he created a ton of deflections in that first half against Newton that just totally threw them off.
Hmm.
And he could guard everybody. I mean, he was guarding the bigs at one moment for Newton, and I was impressed with him. They had a 6'10" junior, and I don't even know if I'll be able to pronounce this correctly, who played really well. Alassane Kamara, I think is how you pronounce it.
Okay, okay. Well, there you go. Your
Yeah,
little
so, 21
phonetical wording. I
years.
like it.
21 years of some learning. But I mean 6'10", just long and big framed and bouncy and just checked all the boxes. And then they did have a senior that was about 6'8" who played really well against Newton, who I was impressed with. Adam Baruch, I believe is how you pronounce it, who's from Montreal, Canada originally.
Hmm.
And he has an offer to Cal Fullerton currently. And so what a grown man. Like the dude's 6'8" and just wide, torsoed and powerful and explosive. They ran a backdoor play for a dunk for him that they executed a couple times, and Sorry, Sam, if I'm giving away the playbook, but he looked the part. But that aside, Hamilton Heights is just kind of in a league of their own. Who are some top Georgia guys you saw that stuck out to you?
One guy that yes, I've been on him since a lot this summer, Vincent Cray. You know, we talked highly of him all summer, especially as we recapped June in one of our earlier podcasts. And I basically challenged him to go ahead and, hit the weight room. He looks like he has. He looked like he's getting that body ready for college and being able to, once again, uh, provide a level of erasing the conversation that a high school kid might not be ready to play at the collegiate level. He has the IQ. He has a great feel for the game. You know, somebody's tried to question his defense, and as something that you and I talked about, bring him in then. Bring a kid. If you doubt that a kid is unable to do something, bring them in. Have them go through some of your stuff, and then once he does or anybody does, next you know you'll be able to determine surely what they're capable of doing. Certainly, he's one that I really was like, man, I really love him. Another guy is a 2027 with Southwest Atlanta Christian Academy. Is Talon Harris or Taylor Harris. I mean, explosive guard, can can get into the paint, and it's important for a guy about 6'2" and a half, 6'3" maybe, you know, more 6'2", and I might be even stretching that. Just getting into the lane and being explosive, has a good body for a junior, and really love what he did with the Warriors and being able to once again execute and provide the excitement that his team needed.
I again, um, Hamilton Heights aside, when I kind of did my kind of player rankings from the day, I had Vincent Cray in my top, first team as well, and I just, whew, we knew he was good when we saw him in June, but the thing he did against Kip Academy that I didn't see him do in June was his pivot game inside has gotten a lot better, and
Yes.
his ability to get you to stand up defensively out of your stance where he's got you now and maneuver around you with his long, step and his pivot, and he shoots it high naturally. So it's all at 6'7". He's already hard to guard, and so like Kip had a really hard time with him, and Drew hung in the game for a very long time against Kip before Kip just kind of pulled away at the end. But I think I had him for 24
and
against.
and and he had 27, down against Hadley from Alabama.
Yeah,
So like those aren't, you could say what you want, but those numbers are numbers. You know what I mean? And that's production. And the one thing that he's always done is even if he starts out slow, he still remains locked into play. And I actually said this while I was talking to some of these college coaches that were in attendance. He has a Tom Chambers esque kind of game,
mm.
very Tom Chambers esque. And for those of you
we're,
who
we're
may be
showing we're showing our age here.
absolutely, and I was just about to say that those who are, who watched the game long enough and have been in this game and understands and respects the history of the game, you know, I'm not going to just call him a player like today because it'd be low hanging fruit to say, oh, he's very Cooper Flag-ish. You know what I mean? But like, that's not accurate. That's just talking. But let's go into the archives and talk about a Tom Chambers who was highly skilled at the high post, who could also shoot the three, as you mentioned, being able to long. But it wasn't his calling card. His calling card is his athleticism that sneakily Vincent Cray has, because there was a few times that he was catching the ball and was the first in transition after he tipped it, and he going up down the floor and grabs it. And even at one point, some kid tried to jump with him. And because he's been in the weight room or been lifting or been doing whatever, and that his body looks so much better, he was able to absorb the contact and finish with two hands above the rim and hang in there. So, you know, Very, if anybody's a basketball purist, look it up. Tom Chambers, very, and and again, he looks like him. Got the blonde hair, long, wiry frame. I just know that he will certainly surprise the college program if given a chance.
Now, there comes a point where you see somebody enough where you almost over over
Hmm.
analyze or overthink about it, where you try to find something now that you don't like
Absolutely.
necessarily. And I think maybe that's where he's at, because I mean we've seen him what 6 times, and we never seen him had a bad game yet.
Correct. Six or seven times. You kids get
Yeah,
that
there
reference.
you go.
You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? So it's like
not that
you
old.
want you want to be able to, like you said, you watch him so many times, you try to avoid. Listen to what I'm saying. Try to
Yeah,
avoid looking for the holes. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because you like him and you don't want to hurt the kid. And there's some flaws to his game that certainly could be used some polishing and some filling in. But I'm not going to discuss that here. And I'm always glad to talk to anyone, especially him, if he were to ask, because I know he's got a bright future ahead.
yeah. And we'll see him back in 2 weeks at Fall League. One more time for the season kicks off, and of course we will see him at Top 100 camp on October 11th. So see how he does. Man, we got a loaded. Getting excited for Top 100 camp. We got a loaded group of 100 guys coming in, so it's gonna be great. I didn't see a whole lot of him on Sunday, but I saw this. I saw a good chunk of the second half just because my court ended early. Door, I had on my top first team as well from Sunday, and the guy's got a. Every time I turn around, I feel like he's getting another Division II offer from somebody somewhere. But I bet another guy that I'm starting to get calls from, like Florida and Texas JUCOs about now, asking about him, which is another path possibly he might take. Who knows? But I mean, what you saw him more than I did on Sunday. What can you say about him?
Well, the one thing is, again, you talk about what you're looking for, the changes in what a player makes and how they do. And the one thing that I've noticed is that he's still certainly got a tremendous mid-range game of basketball, and he's got such a nice touch. He's starting to talk a little bit more on the defensive aspect of the game, because people think, oh, just because he's 6'9", it should be easy. No, you still want to be energetic. You still want to be talkative. You still want to be active, especially on the defensive end. He's even on offensive components looking for teammates to be in the right spots, and looking to try to make the right decision, the correct basketball play to be able to execute. Another thing that really got me was, yes, his athleticism is nice, but I think it's, again, progressing as the body changes, whether it's through weights, whether through maturity, as the body continues to change, and even rest. He's had a chance to rest a little bit since the end of the summer. Yeah, he's gone to a few different things. His team has played in a few different fall leagues, including ours, and he's certainly going to be at the top 100. At the in 2 weeks. Certainly, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does at the top 100, because now we have enough talent in our top 100 that is going to be able to counter what he's able to do size wise,
Yeah,
and potentially lean on him, which is then those phone calls you're getting from Florida JUCOs, Texas JUCOs will certainly um, continue to help, validate what you've been. Hopefully, continue to validate what you've been
yeah.
speaking of. I
Well,
think the kid is going to be a steal, for, again, another steal,
yeah,
because where a lot of what we're doing with our fall league, yeah, it's names and people and guys know, but they don't really get talked about enough. Guys don't get talked about. You have a guard that I'm gonna let you speak about, who I think is going to be one of the top guards in the state. Who had a performance scoring outing that, you know again, doesn't get talked enough of. And he's a young man who I think can certainly play in a lot of these schools that are not just in Georgia, but in the surrounding areas and beyond the surrounding areas, like, again, Florida and Texas.
yeah. Now, first time I saw Door play, I was like, this guy's really good. Like, what am I missing? Because he wasn't talked about. Like his name wasn't a household name, and it still kind of isn't as much as it should be, I should say. But I was like, I went back, watched more film, watched like the dude is just always consistently good, and he's got the length and the size. He passes the eyeball test immediately,
Yep.
and I'm interested to see how he does at top 100 camp when he's playing, with guys his level and against guys his level, where the cream always rises to the top, as they say. And I had a junior college who's coming to top 100 camp who called me. I was like, hey, we got a jamboree that weekend. I might send an assistant, but he's like, but who's one of the top kids? They're going to be there. And so I sent him some door clips, and he called me back. He's like, hey, I'm gonna come. I'm gonna send my assistant with the team, and I'm gonna come down and watch. So I mean, people are finally kind of starting to see what he can do. But some other kids that I had on my next grouping, you could say, from Saturday, we talked about David Askew, we talked about Harper Rife, Damari Bailey from Griffin was a kid that just tore it up. Whew. I mean, a game against Parkview to cap it off. I haven't seen a high school kid all fall shoot the ball as well as he shot at that game. And the guy could have almost gone on for 40 if that game would have gone on for 5 more minutes. Like, it was mind blowing. And he's got an offer to Mississippi Gulf Coast JUCO, Division One. And those Mississippi JUCOs can only take 4 out-of-state guys, and so if you get one of those offers, you're pretty darn good.
Yes. Yes.
And 4-year varsity guy for Oscar Moore. We talked about that last week. We did our 4A preview, and just another tall guard who you don't see him make a lot of mistakes. Like, he plays with it himself, and he can score the heck out of that ball when he has to.
Look, I had a coach mention. I overheard a coach mention, "Oh, he's probably only 5'11." And I looked, and I almost said something, and I was like, "Nah." And then that coach decided to like walk closer to the court. He's like, "Nah." I was like, because I turned around, I was like, "Nah, he's a little bit taller than that." And I was like this, and I mean by a significant bunch. It isn't anything. One thing that when you look at Damari, and we talked about this with Coach Morris, who certainly was not off about that kid in terms of his demeanor. Okay, you don't know if he's necessarily having a bad game, and you might not even know if he's having a great game. Like he stays just poised and stoic the entire time, looking to be on the attack mode, looking to be that wolf pack, dog mad mentality of I'm going. When you text me and said Damari just went for 30 plus, the impressive part about it is it's 30 plus with a running clock.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
We're not talking about 30 plus stop time.
yeah. And
You
it
know,
was
and
and it was
and those
30
are the things
plus.
that when you look at him, he I think again, I could see where there be some concerns about running a program, but again, if you teach the kid how to run certain things, and Coach Morris will have him ready to run a program because he runs his program now.
Yeah. Uh, and it wasn't like a 30 plus where like this kid needs to go ice his arm down after the game because he's
Hmm.
shooting so much. Like, it was a 30 plus where, oh, I'm open, boom, pop it. Like,
Exactly.
let me go create. Yeah, and off I think he had 3 offensive rebounds for putbacks. Like, because Jace Touchstone had a good game to that game, but man, no, he played well, and we're gonna see them this Sunday. They're coming back this Sunday, and their first game I'm looking forward to against Locust Grove. That'll be a great matchup.
That's going to be an excellent matchup.
And so another name people maybe aren't familiar with, but name they better get familiar with soon. 2028 kid who I liked from Wilson Academy, Cullen Brown, 6'3" point guard who had a really good game against Hamilton Heights, second game, at 16, I believe. Plays with Georgia Stars on that Peach Jam team.
Hmm.
All perimeter guy, shot the ball well off the dribble. Has a really nice shot fake or head fake that he can kind of sell to get defenders again to stand up so he can get past. Everything was to the middle, which was interesting, but he was really efficient from the middle third of the floor. I don't know if you saw him. If he was he
I
there?
did, but again, the way that game was played, he didn't have an opportunity, you know, to really glow. There was a lot of different players and guys on his team, and sometimes when you're that talented, depending on which game it is, you get dwarfed out, and not by any. In some cases, it's intentionally. In other cases, it just happens.
Well, Hamilton Heights. I just like I don't know how you score in the post on them. Like we talked about the 6'10" junior, right? The Kamara kid, and the most impressive thing I didn't even mention about him was that in 2 games, he didn't give up a single basket in the paint in 2 games.
Now that's good. Now
That's
that's
not
good.
bad. And so like you could argue that second game for Wilson Academy that the Brown kid had to go off, but he did what he was supposed to do, and then played really well. Uh, Other Georgian name mentioned earlier, Jared White. Had a lot of colleges who texted me about Jared White after league on Sunday. Like, hey, what do you know about this kid? Heard he played well. Transfer from Heritage and Conyers. He did hit some big shots against Hamilton Heights in the game that I saw. He hit some real tough shots. He's got a tall, long, wide frame, perimeter guy. See anything on your end when they played all against East Coweta?
Well, one thing is he's not afraid to compete because even at one point it got a little chippy between him and one of the other guys on East Coweta, but he still stayed poised, and in that poise, he managed to again knock down shots. He really was out in transition, looking to, and it wasn't just shooting. He was getting into the lane, feeding into the contact, being able to draw attention, sometimes kicking it, sometimes hitting a floater. He's the younger brother of James White, who I believe is at the University of New Orleans. Used to be at Ole Miss. So definitely he knows what it looks like having lived in the house, with his older brother and seeing his older brother's journey. But now it's his path, and I think he has a good solid year this year. He could easily garner a little bit more attention as the season kicks off anew.
Yeah. Nah, he's a competitor. I like that. I like that for sure.
Another guy that I really liked was Best Academy Zion Evans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, gets into the lane quickly. Is certainly a scoring type level guard. Okay, who would probably be playing the point at the next level, depending on the school. But certainly can get into the paint. Does a lot of good action, and even his one thing I liked is his coachability, because you know the best ability is not only availability but being able to be coached. And they were asking him to do certain things defensively. He did it. If he took a bad shot, he owned it. As opposed to blaming someone else and looking to kind of point fingers, as they say, to blame someone that nobody's responsible. He took the responsibility.
Makes sense, yeah. Another kid I'll add, King Jones from Kip Academy.
Mm.
Played really well. And he's
Yeah, I hate that I missed Kid, but hopefully I'll see them.
he'll be back in 2 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
he transferred from Kell, if I remember correctly. And man, like just strong. Like plays big, plays off 2 feet, will guard the other team's best player and lock down when he has to. Like him and Vincent Cray were going back and forth in that Group D title game, and it was really fun to watch because it was 2 college level dudes that were playing somewhere next year. They were just kind of going back and at each other, and it was a higher level
Mm-hmm.
moment, so to speak. And but King Jones played really really well, and Kip Academy. When we talk about 2A next week, we'll talk about them because they're going to be a very very difficult out in 2A public this year. So
And there's one name that if you give me a moment
yeah,
to really talk about a guy that I honestly can tell you, no one knows who this kid is. Okay, Noah Nichols from East Jackson. Okay, the only people that would know anybody lives north of 985 and even further north of 85. Because Kid is a big 6'4", 6'5" ish young man, broad shoulders, strong as an ox, who could easily be on their football team and play as a tight end and would have an offer immediately. Okay, immediately. Explosive, great hands, good basketball IQ, can shoot it. You can extend the floor in a way where, you go, man, this kid is solid. And he's a 2027. He's a 2027 that is going to give East Jackson a name that people are going to talk about. Okay, you'll see some teams will certainly be preparing to guard him, and he may be able to dominate because he's. And again, I love his chippiness. I love his just not willing to back down from any competitive push, and he showed a lot of that. And I don't know what he showed you on your floor when they played earlier.
Man, no, well, first of all, you said he's extremely strong, like very strong, and he gave Kip Academy some serious problems. And I mean, to give them credit, we heard all summer, right? East Jackson's going to be better, and
Yes.
they they showed me I mean, they're coming all 3 weekends, so we'll see them this weekend, next weekend. But I mean, he hit four threes in a row, like in a row, and then had to do a heat check from the volleyball line. I mean, they were like, okay. And so when they started coming out further to guard him, Kip Academy, then he started going to the basket. And he's got a really hard to guard floater
Yes.
to his right that
Yes.
he gets that angle down and a little more consistent off it. You got 6'7" Galen Roberts, trying to guard you. Whew, he is gonna, and he's a good defender too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With great feet. With, with
Yes.
with great feet for his size, excellent feet and excellent athleticism. So again, there's a space for him somewhere. And I'm sure and hope that there's a college program listening to this. Just look the kid up. Look the kid up, or ask one of us, because I promise you, you won't be disappointed, especially if you make your way down to our fall league down at Therrell High School, which they have an excellent hosting venue.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I was pleased, and I'm definitely looking forward to doing more stuff with Coach Therrell over at Therrell High School and the Panthers. So
Absolutely.
that's a digital. I don't know what you call that.
The scoreboard and the
The wall,
jumbotron.
the
Look,
jumbotron was awesome. That was cool how they were able to pull that
had
off. So
everything up there, and players next week, this coming week, the stuff that myself and Matt write, you'll be able to see it on there.
it's true.
You'll be able to see it on there.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
So this week, gonna try to dabble into 3A, and this is kind of a harder conversation now to have, just because now this is where we get into private schools that are competing in the regions, but come postseason won't be participating. They'll be going off to their own private school state tournament, so to say. And so a little different conversation than we've had the last couple weeks. But starting in 3A Region 1, a lot of talent that graduated from last year down in that, Albany area. But got a chance to see some of these teams this summer, and some of the players coming back are familiar names. Obviously, Cam Cherry at Peach County is a name that people might be familiar with, who, helped shock the world last year in the 3A state tournament first round. That go back and put some money down in Vegas, you probably would have made out pretty well in that 31 versus 2 matchup.
Yep. And notice what you said, 31 versus 2. And traveling up to North Georgia to play Cherokee Bluff, and that community anticipating a easy walkover, into the next round. Cam Cherry made sure to surprise them and deliver bad news.
Well, and this region, it's not talked about very often because it's hiding, so to speak, down there in Albany, Georgia. But they do well in the state tournaments.
Yes.
You know, I mean, Doherty made it to the Elite Eight last year, and Bakari's not there anymore. He's now, moved on to New Hampstead. But they made an elite run last year. Monroe made it to the Final Four
Yes.
last year, and just one of those programs that's always good and always experienced, right? Peach County made it to the Sweet 16. Westover made it to the Sweet 16. So all four of those teams made it to the round of 16 last year that we just mentioned, and so just a lot of kind of talent that goes untalked about. Westover is probably the team that brings back some of the most talent with Greg Williams and Jalen Holmes, who are both going to be seniors. Greg Williams is like a 6'4", kind of a Swiss Army knife type guy.
Mm-hmm.
Was first team all region last year, and I believe Holmes was too, if I remember correctly, at Westover. And so, excuse me, but two guys that were leaders last year. They did it last year, and so
Mm-hmm.
Westover will be a pretty tough team, I think, coming out of that region. Peach County, besides Cam Cherry, has a big kid that kind of made a name for himself a little bit this summer, who's only going to be a junior, Rowan Woodrich, who's about
I love that kid.
yes.
Love that kid.
And so
He's,
you saw him this summer, correct?
yes, I saw him this summer playing with a travel program and being able to. He's two things that stood out to me. One, he's gotten stronger. Okay, because that was the one thing that I kept saying. I was like, if he adds a little bit more weight, he can make a difference. He's going to have to carry them. When I say carry them, carry the interior presence for them, but he's not afraid to do so. And he has enough mobility that he can, again, cause disruption for a team that may not have someone either A, as mobile, or B, now as strong to be able to compete with him. And he's got enough skills that he's technically almost like a walking double double at a very young age, which is always good to have because when you have a kid who's going, who's that young, that is willing, because rebounding, it's a will. You're
Yes.
willing to do it. You want to do it. He wants to do it. And I think even last year, he averaged about 5 blocks a game, if I'm not mistaken.
I did hear. Yeah.
So, you're talking about a guy who is not afraid to anchor it down inside.
Yeah, and he'll be the biggest kid in that region this year, and I liked him last year, and it's just a good 1-2 punch of him and Cam Cherry, and just them again, Peach County, Westover, and Monroe. It's gonna be a fun trio to watch in a 6-team region. Got a chance to see. I never say it right. Is it Carroll? Did I pronounce
Carol,
it
yeah, Carol, you got it.
Hey, all right.
You,
The syrup
look,
makers. The
you're,
syrup
you're,
makers.
you're, it's Cairo, and like actually it's Cairo, but like
Yeah,
your Georgia Regency twang is coming. I like it.
we're getting there. We're getting there. So they came to Griffin for one of our tournaments this summer, and they had a kid who's going to be a junior, 2027, Omari Addison, who played really well for them, and so might be another name to pay attention to for coming up to varsity. And they actually had a young 2029 kid who played well that weekend, also named Jaden Mathis, about 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so, might be a young team to kind of pay attention to. Doherty's pretty much starting all over. And Bainbridge, who usually is pretty good, they were a little down last year, and so we'll see what they look like as well. But I think between Peach County, Westover, and Monroe, it's going to be an exciting region to pay attention to, who historically has made deep runs in the state tournament.
Yep.
Region 2, Sandy Creek, can they pull off a four-peat? Is going to be a storyline to pay attention to. And lost a lot of players to graduation last year who were contributors. But, Avon Florence was a kid that played a big role for them and was all region last year, about 6'5", who kind of one of those Swiss Army knife type guys who does a little bit of everything. And he'll be called upon quite a bit to do a lot for them.
Mm-hmm.
You win 3 in a row, everyone's coming for you. I don't care who you are, And
Well, I want to certainly take a moment to salute J Mac on that. Coach Nickerson, and He's put together a nice program down at Sandy Creek. Um, and if he does it, and if my memory serves me correctly, certainly the last person to do it is Coach White over at Pace when he was at Miller Grove, but then after that, it's a short list. It's a short list. And to be able to do it in this age of kids moving around, both whether he benefits from it or not, it happens. And for him to be able to still have that level of consistency and the standard that doesn't change, my hat's off to him.
Yeah, no, they uh,
Let
they
me
have a
plug something in.
program.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
they got a program over there, and they have a plan, and they get it done. So, and can't say enough good things. I mean, you talk about a team defensively that just makes it extremely difficult for you. Like that is them. Like they make you have to make some really difficult plays to beat them. I caught them a number of times last year and against good teams, and it's just it. You have to play so well. Um, what's the right way to put it? You have to play so well so often that the margin for error is very small against them because they can turn defense into offense very quickly. The way they play and score easy baskets. But that being said, yeah, I think their region is going to be better this year. We got a chance to see, um, let's see, Lagrange this past weekend. Who
No,
had?
you did. They didn't make it to my
Oh,
floor.
yeah, my bad. I saw Lagrange, and while they don't have a Torrey and Reeves anymore, they
Hmm.
did have some scrappy young kids who got after it, and they did go 2-0. And so they played really well. But Mary Persons, who didn't have a single senior on the team last year, brings their entire team back. And D. Greer had a really good summer when we saw them a couple times, and can definitely do some things that can muck up the game, so to speak, for an opponent.
Yep.
Um, Spalding had one of my favorite guards from the summer, Keelan Day, who we've seen
Yes.
before. And Keelan Day is another, and D. Greer too. Both those guys are top 100 camp attendees that we'll see in a couple weekends. Um, Troop County, another team that brings back some good players. I believe their point guard has an offer to Calhoun JUCO in Alabama, Jalen Brown, who played.
Hmm.
I think he played for AE5, if I remember
Yep.
correct. All right, it's another good player. D. Moreland, kind of a 6'4", 6'5" guy at Troop County, who another really good athlete that is going to be a player to watch. So there's some good teams in that region. Fayette County, another team they bring back Jackson Rutley, who's a name that people might not be entirely familiar with,
Hmm.
who was all region first team I believe last year, and so like there's some very good players that are good enough to go take over a game, so to speak, in that region.
Right.
Um,
To
what
go
team?
get a bucket.
To go
Right.
get a bucket on a
Go get a
team that's
bucket.
not named Sandy Creek.
Yes. Go
So,
get a bucket, and that's where, like again, D. Greer, he certainly was a bucket maker this summer. Especially any chance he got a. Even though this is what was the interesting part about D's game. Even though opponents knew he had to be the guy to guard, he still managed to get off.
yeah.
And that was the part that I really was impressed with. Despite his size, he was able to still be productive despite his size.
Well, and Keelan Day, like, man, I'm trying to think. Thomas Glanton at Southwest Acad might be the other kid. There aren't too many kids we saw this summer out of 100, 58 teams or whatever, who will get back on defense, but still kind of hover around half court, reading eyes, looking to pick off outlet passes and just turn it into easy baskets for like ping pong.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
he did that as well as anybody I saw this summer, on top of his skills that he already has. And Keelan Day is gonna be a player to watch in that region, I think, this year. But
Mm.
again, you win three in a row, it's yours until someone takes it from you.
Listen, again, it's the hard part he's done, and the harder part he's going to continue to needing to do because everybody's going to make their game the game to play in, and try to excel as much as they can.
That is true. And so it'll be an interesting storyline to follow, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Region 3 is probably one of the more unique regions because you're dealing with 10 teams, first of all, who are all pretty much, well, there's a few exceptions, but all right there in Savannah. And so they all know each other really well.
Yep.
And when I went down to Savannah in June and ran the beachfront tournament, it was interesting to me how quickly I realized these guys all know each other really, really well.
And
Despite,
dislike each other enough, like the Hatfields and the McCoys.
yeah, despite the rivalries and like the camaraderie, but yet the competition that coexists. And I think I saw every team in that region this summer except for two. Um, and so like Calvary Day is I don't say the exception, but they're the private school in that region, and they'll obviously play in the region, and they'll be the favorite I think to win the region Calvary Day. But then state tournament time, they'll shift away and go play in the private school state tournament under new coach Bob Martin, who is not unfamiliar with 3A, coming from Pickens. They made it a good run last year. So, Calvary Day will be the favorite. They got a ton of talent. They just do. I mean, they lost the dang kid to I think Oak Hill Academy,
Yes.
if I remember correctly. But to be honest, they still have the Kerr kid. I think as they pronounce it, Chol Kerr.
Oker.
6'8" kid who can play the 3 or the 4. Marlon Knight, who's going to be a junior, who's a big Power 5, football recruit, but is a heck of a basketball player. And caught him for a day, first day of the Battlefront, tournament, and God, just out muscles everybody. But he can shoot
Mm-hmm.
at a sweet stroke. And a name that I loved in June. And it was funny, like being an outsider, right? You go somewhere,
Right.
everybody wants to come tell you who to watch, right? And I'm not opposed to that at all whatsoever. In fact, I welcome that when people want to kind of give me some tips because you know you never know what kind of insider advice you might get from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a guard for all the talent of all the talent that Calvary Day had. There was a guard that people kept telling me like, oh man, you got to come see Meach play. That's Demetrius Brown, who will be at Top 100 camp along with Chol and the Martin kid, who's going to be a junior, who one of the better
Mm-hmm.
shooters all summer. And God, he's just strong. He's wide and he's fast, and his motor is really good. He gets downhill quickly, and it's off 2 feet. And there's very few guards that are going to be able to just simply match his physicality, um, especially in 3A. And so, Demetrius Brown will be a name to pay attention to, and looking forward to seeing him play. But I mean, we just listed 5 guys right there who are college level dudes, right? I mean, the Martin kid was one of the best shooters I saw this summer, and his ability to get out quickly in transition. I mean, he canned several threes down in Savannah where he just simply outsmarted everybody. Like he
Right.
just got out, got a spot on the floor, and buckets, right? Um, so that being said, Long County, who you've seen play yourself, has some good players. You like the Holt kid too, like I do, I think.
Yes. And first of all, I want to just touch up on something to follow up with your conversation about Calvary Day. The one thing that they're going to do well, because Coach Martin does this wherever he goes, his teams are going to shoot at an efficient level. Okay, and they're going to shoot plenty of them. And if you're not ready to guard that, and if you think you got it covered, there's 4 other guys on that court and 4 other guys on that bench who could shoot it at a high level. So if nothing else, that's what Coach Martin's going to have. Talking now about Long County. First of all, Coach Ricardo Rivera Sr. does a solid job. First of all, he's back where he grew up at. He's been there for a while, and he's building that program back to the way he wants it to be. And he's got is Jason Mallard, who is a junior, 6'3" junior, wiry kid, can certainly make some plays, runs his team, and coach trusts him. You know, Coach Rivera, Coach Rivera trusts what he's doing, and he's the extension of what they are on the floor. We saw them down at Griffin, and what I liked about them is they all competed, and whether they didn't have the size when they played like a Noonan, they still competed. You almost like the way they competed forced Noonan to have to sit there big to be able to, again match up with the quickness and the grit that Long County has. So I know he's gonna make some moves. I like Desire, like you said, Desire Holt, who's 6'1" senior, who certainly makes that team go.
Yeah.
He's the engine, he's the poise, he's the leadership. So I definitely, and one guy that's I like is also Jameer Martin. He's another guard, which again, tough nose, Savannah level, kid or Savannah area kid who they're gonna compete, they're gonna scrap, which is why a lot of those games, and I sometimes hate that we're so far away from them because I
Sure.
can only imagine what a Friday night basketball or even a Saturday night basketball game atmosphere is down there because all these teams, as you mentioned, know each other well enough that losing isn't just like, oh, it's gonna hurt, but I won't see those guys at the mall. You're going to see these guys at the mall. You're going to see these guys at somebody's gathering or somebody's, store, gas station, because guess what? They're not that far off from each other. And they're not going off and like, again, getting lost in the metro. And if they do, again, go out somewhere in Savannah, they're going to bump into each other somewhere. They're going to bump into each other somewhere and they're going to hate the fact that they lost to that team or enjoy the fact that they beat that whatever team it is. So interesting little matchups down there.
Fun fact: when I was in Savannah, we went out to eat that first night. They got a restaurant down. I think it's downtown called the Trailer Park, and I'm like, I got to go see what the Trailer Park
Wait a
has.
minute. What do they kind of sell down there?
It's like a bar restaurant called the Trailer Park, and I'm like, went in there, man. They had these nachos. They put like uh, balsamic vinaigrette on in there. Like, oh, I was like, oh, geez, okay. So if you're ever in Savannah, check out the Trailer Park
I will certainly do that, and
restaurant.
we'll look to be down there sometime next summer as well.
This is true. Savannah Johnson as a guard, it's going to be a senior who feels like he's been there forever, named Quentin James, who will be a kid to pay attention to in that region. He's got a lot of experience and relied on heavily for them to do well. And so, again, Liberty County, another team that had a good season last year. Elijah Brown is a really good guard, really, really good guard, who was first team all region last year. You want to see, again, underrated prospects that are 6 foot and under, smaller guards. Like Elijah Brown is electric to watch. And so that's a name to remember. But going back to Long County, I wanted to mention about the Holt kid. I don't know if there's any guards that are as good as playing off at 2 feet as the Holt kid.
Very fundamentally equipped.
Yes. Yeah. Like, just doesn't, like, 1 foot is not his vocabulary at all. Like,
Well, he's it gives him balance, but it also allows him to use his lower body strength that he has actually for a guard has a good lower half of a frame. That he's fairly strong. Like he doesn't skip leg days if he's in PE class.
there you go. And I did like you mentioned the kid who's a 2027 kid for them, Jason Mallard.
Jason,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Jason Mallard, man. He's
He's
certainly
legit.
a kid in a name to keep track of.
Well, and he's far from done growing, if I
No,
understood correctly when he came and talked to me about him. Like he's gonna be a tall prospect coming down. Um, moving on to Region 4, Cross Creek. Oh man, I feel like every time I turned around, somebody else was ending up at Cross Creek this year, and they already brought back some good players. I mean, you talk about Frashad Tisby, who's picked up a good number of Division One offers. And I love Rashad Tisby's game, and had a good summer with the Georgia Stars and EYBL. Just kind of like a 6'5", 6'6", kind of a wing forward slash. I mean, just kind of a jack of all trades guy, who I like. And they have another good little guard who's in that 2027 class who, I think another guy to just kind of pay attention to, Derek Shine,
Mm-hmm.
played well. But they also picked up one of my top available 2026 prospects from Augusta Westside, Dontrell Jackson, is now over at Cross Creek.
Big pickup. Big pickup.
Another kid that maybe doesn't get talked about enough, coming from that Augusta area. But I mean, I've liked Dontrell Jackson for as long as I've seen him play. What do you like about his game?
Well, one thing is just strong. Almost like, there's movers and shakers, and he's a mover. He's, you know what I'm saying? He's going to move furniture. He's going to disrupt. And with the ability of having two guards that'll help open the floor for him, would allow him the opportunity to operate both in and out, and certainly give them the depth on that front line. I mean, it's funny because I just recently attended a coaching clinic, and Cross Creek came up here to Hall County, and they played East Hall, and apparently someone told Joe Dix that Creekside couldn't shoot, and I attended that game. They might have hit every shot in the gym that
Hmm.
even Coach Dix, who we'll speak about later in his East Hall, Vikings, is he literally said, someone lied to me, and the way they shot the ball, that if they continue to shoot it at that kind of level with Jackson involved, a 27-3 seat record from a year ago can certainly be still 27-3, but it could end up possibly with them hoisting up the trophy.
Yeah, they're a threat to the crown for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're going to get tested. That region does have some good players in it.
Absolutely.
Baldwin is very well coached and brings back Perez Demery, who's a Division I player. I think he has an offer to South Dakota State, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did lose some pieces to the off season, but the Demery kid's still there. And Harlem, had a good off season as well, and has picked up some players. And so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch. But Cross Creek is just deep with talent, and as you mentioned, shoots the ball well. They got length, and they're going to be a threat to the 3A public state championship, I think for sure.
Absolutely.
And kudos to what they've been able to build over there. And I think they sent Jaden Priester, Division I last year. I think he went to Moorhead State, if I remember correctly. 6'7" kid. And they had a Braylon Maddox last year as well. So they've been churning out some players who have gone on to play at the college level.
But this is going to be interesting. I just happened to, decided to peruse their schedule. Their first their first non-region game, Milton High School.
Oh,
So if we're going to go get tested, this is a good way to start, and I love it. This is what we talk about all the time.
yeah,
Scheduling matters, and the fact that they jumped at this opportunity to get on the schedule is fantastic.
yeah. That's gonna be a great matchup. Well, Region 5 has what many people will consider the favorite to win the 3A title and possibly, you know, finish the job, so to speak, and that's Cedar Grove.
Whew.
So, you don't see too many states that have lower classification teams that have two Power 5 players on one team, but Manny Green, has been a big name since he was in middle school
Mm-hmm.
on the national scene, and had a good summer playing EYBL with Knight Riders, as well as the big man in the middle, Javante Floyd, who had a really good Peach Jam, I thought, by the way, when I was there covering that. And so you got two dudes who are just really tough matchup issues, on top of the talent that they already have coming back. They got the transfer from Druid Hills for the 2028 6'3 lefty, perimeter guy, who I thought had a really good year last year over at Druid Hills, Dakota Freeman. Um, and so, you know, I don't know. There's not a lot of matchups for them in 3A outside of Cross Creek, um, to be honest with you, that jump out at me as guys that can match up physically. Obviously, there's going to be good coaching and strategizing that happens, and there's going to be flaws that get found. But if you just simply look at size and ability and physique, I mean, whew, man, that's it's gonna be tough to slow that down.
Manny Green has almost been he's not only been a talk since, like you said, middle school, but he's built on that frame more and more because he went from middle school being lanky, wiry, slinky, getting into the areas, getting into gaps, being able to just dominate because of his length, in terms of arms and limbs and everything else like that. Now he's gotten stronger. You've had a chance to see him in the YBL. There's no mistake why LSU's, Tennessee's, and schools like that are coming to visit Cedar Grove. They're not going there just because they're going to see the Saints because of Manny Green. And being able to see what he's going to do, being able to fit. I think, as he garners the attention, what's going to be interesting is how you handle that mentally. How you handle that as a young man. Because young kids today, they want to just get the rock and score, which is certainly understandable, but it's how do you handle the extra attention? You want the attention, but here it is now. You're going to get it. People are going to give it to you. They're going to come. People are going to knock, push, kick. You just got to know when you're ready to be able to accept those challenges. But I still think they'll have, you know, certainly an opportunity to get make a run. They too, open up in a tough region. I mean, excuse me, a tough early game of the season, first game of the year. They come out against Columbia, so we'll see what they have. We'll see what they have.
We'll find out early, as they say. Uh, the rest of the region, cupboard's not bare.
No.
Luella has a guy who we'll see at top 100 camp. Dan, I think it's Oibo.
Yep. Horrible.
So we
But
saw him at McDonough. Great athlete, great athlete. So we'll see him at top 100. Uh, Frederick Douglass, new coaching hire, but they have a kid who I really like. Malachi, is it Edgel?
Edgel, Edgel. He's certainly going to again, depending on how coach's system and he fits into what they're doing, he certainly is going to give them some of the experience that he needs and hopefully be able to lead from the front as, like you said, a new coaching hire and be able to help set the tone.
And obviously, as far as new coaching hires go as well, Stevenson bringing in B.J. Thomas. And so we'll see what the Jaguars look like.
Look, Coach Thomas has done an excellent job when he was down at McDonough and just took a year off and was able to get himself back onto the sideline. We had a chance to see them down at Miller Grove, and as he really came, and you could tell that he's still trying to infuse a lot of his philosophy into the program because they're still new. They're still trying to figure it out. They didn't have the best of records, a year ago. So he's trying to squeeze some of the stuff that, bad habits or whatever you want to call it. And it's not a knock on any coach. It's more of he's just trying to incorporate what he wants to do. I'm sure he wants to play fast based on how we saw them this summer. He's going to want them to play a little scrappy. And, hopefully he'll be able to accomplish that as the season progresses this year. Excuse me.
Sure. Well, again, staying with that theme of new coaching hires, going into Region 6, GAC, another private school, who will play the regular season, then go off to the private school state tournament. The new coaching hire of Scepter Brownlee, who's coming from Calvary Day, another private school that was in 3A. And you can't talk about GAC without talking about Bear Bailey, who One of my favorite 2028 kids who just keeps getting better and better and better. 6'8", kind of a wing, you could say now, wing forward type guy, not just the center that he was maybe a year ago at this time to start the season. And I mean, he's the best prospect in that region.
Easy,
Easy.
easy,
But
easily the best prospect.
another guy who I have one of the best names in Georgia at White County, Blaine Gunter,
Yes.
pronounce it, who was hurt a little bit last year, but put up some big numbers before he went out. 6'5" kid is only going to be a junior, but yeah, just another dude that can just super skilled and plays with a great motor and does a little bit of everything, but he can shoot the heck out of the ball at 6'5",
Hmm.
and that automatically is attractive and translates
Well,
well.
you know you got to be good when no matter what was going on at White County, his name always came up. You know, his name always came up, and people were like, "Man, you got to see this kid." And I'm like, and I'm like, "Yo, where is he?" Well, he's hurt, or he still hasn't come back from injury, or or even the summer, it's like, nah, he's just still trying to take care of himself and do some other things. So I'm like, I really can't wait. I really can't wait because I would love to see what he does, and be able to fully recover that from his injury to be able to give the Warriors what they would need because that's a passionate fan base up there at White County.
Pickens kind of starting all over again, lost a lot to graduation and new coaching hire, but 2026 McCord Purdy is still there, who I
Yep,
thought was a prospect that really stuck out to me when I watched them play last year. And another name I'll mention, Lumpkin County, Landon Pierce. He's going to be a 6-foot point guard.
he's tough. He's tough as they come, and even when you look at it, there are a few teams, North Hall with Gunner. I'm trying to think of his name. Loses it real quick, and I'll come to it. But Spain, Gunner Spain,
Yeah.
and he's lefty. You can shoot it, and Coach Davenport's going to have his team playing fast, in your face, up and down basketball. So certainly, when you mentioned it, GAC being the lone private school in that region with really a mountainous region, because every school is in the mountain, and the deepest one being Pickens. Pickens being the furthest trip for a GAC to have to make, or vice versa, for them. And then a lot of the teams just being able to make that trip north, or even to GAC, is just going to be interesting. But certainly, Scepter Brownlee, for those who've been around for a while, basketball people, um, he's a familiar name to the Metro, and who is great skill guy, did a fantastic job at Calvary Day and being able to do some stuff over there. So he's back in the Metro, and really nice guy, and looking forward to seeing what he does with GAC and Bear Bailey.
Yeah. Yeah. They might have put the record on for most miles last year for in-region um, traveling. So they have
Absolutely.
some serious long hauls.
I mean,
I
you're talking from Lilburn to Dawsonville. You're talking from Lilburn up to Ellijay.
can,
Ellijay isn't close to anything other than the North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia border.
uh,
You know what I mean?
not a lot of places to stop out the way in between either.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. Well, moving on to Region 7, the favorite who did win it last year, in my opinion, again, is Calhoun. And Trace Hawkins, last year was a freshman, um, made first team all region, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think he was first team as a freshman. I think he's got a Auburn football offer. He's the quarterback as well on the football team.
Yes.
Um, and so, he's back. You got Trey Perkins. The Perkins brothers are back. Jackson Moore is back. And so Calhoun brings back darn near all their scoring. They're going to be a very difficult out in that region. Um,
And I had a chance to see Trace Hawkins and Calhoun this summer a little bit. And boy, was I impressed.
mm,
And now I can see when I did look it up at the time that I was watching them, that he had a football offer from Auburn, I can see why. Because the one thing that kid refused to do against a Berkmar, is fold. He was willing to attack them, and again, you would people would think, oh, this is going to be easy, a small 3A school versus a powerhouse 6A, but he made sure that they didn't have no easy walk in the park. Certainly, their guard play, as you mentioned, with Jackson Moore, you had Trace Hawkins. These are guys that will compete.
And the Hawkins kid, his ability to just turn on a dime quick is just, I mean, he's got a dude had a Power Five SEC football offer as a freshman, so that
Right.
speaks enough right there. They're done. Conversation's over, I
Yep.
guess. But
There's nothing to talk about.
yeah, well, there's a kid in that region who people may not know about who's going to be a sophomore, 2028 kid, about 6'2", 6'3", at Ridgeland High School, named T.J. Foster, who's worth a look.
I remember you telling me about him, and you said coach was excited about him. So tell me, what did coach tell you?
Well, I mean, Ridgeland last year they went 1-11 in the region, but I mean he was the guy on that team. I mean, at one point he was averaging about 20 a game. I don't even know what he ended up
Wow.
averaging, but um, just a good athlete who can explode. He's got a great first step to get past people. He's got a nice floater game, from that 6 foot, area or whatever. And just looks like he hasn't even begun to play his best basketball. He's physically not done. Like he's got a
Right.
lot of room left to grow, and so he'll be a guy to pay attention to. And he's only going to be a sophomore, right? The dude was scoring 20 a game at one point as a freshman, and this another kid that is not really talked about coming out of that region. Heritage High School, and is it Catoosa? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
Hey, I'm learning my Georgia. They got two dudes over there that can shoot the cover off the ball. That will be interesting to watch. They have a new coach over at Heritage this year, if I remember correctly. Caden Lowry and Cooper Bell.
Okay.
And both of them, we're talking serious range. Like, open it up, like from the parking lot. And so, uh, anytime you get two dudes that can do that,
Mm-hmm.
who are now seniors, that changes some things. And if I remember correctly, Cooper Bell was second team all region, and the Lowry kid was first team all region last year.
Okay.
And so they did it last year. They're coming back. Obviously, new coaching staff. We'll see what it looks like over there. But Heritage will be a team to pay attention to in that region. But it's Calhoun's till somebody beats them.
Right. Right.
So, which leads us to our final region, Region 8. And this is your area of expertise.
Listen, I've coached in that region. I know a lot of these schools in that region. I'm going to just tell you this: it's a region, when you look at it top to bottom, there's a large level of um, solid coaching and certainly some experience. I mean, you talk about a team that people have watched over the last 4 years, Cherokee Bluff. And Coach Travis has a solid group of guys that not only will they come back, they certainly, you got Cooper Glover, you got Andy Robinson, guys who can shoot the basketball. They lost Boston Kirsch, they lost Tyler Underwood, so these guys have been on the floor young. They've been on the floor early, so they're a team that, again, unfortunately for them, got eliminated as a top two team, you know, um, against Peach County, and they certainly struggled, and they certainly struggled that night, and they picked. It was just the wrong night to struggle. You had the home court advantage. You're in the, you get the number two seed. You certainly hope that they would been able to get over the hump, and just didn't. Now you also, in that, there was a dogfight in that region last year when you had, again, them, East Hall, Jefferson. These teams were fighting for the top two spots because nobody wanted to go on the road, which I understand that. You play all year to finish, obviously finish, get into the playoffs, but more importantly, get a region game. Because it creates community. East Hall with Coach Joe Dix and the most talked about best player, best prospect is Braden Langford, who unfortunately right now he's nursing an injury, but will certainly be back somewhere mid to the early part of the season. The Jamarcus Harris, who was also um, one of their key players at East Hall, he committed to play football at Kennesaw State. So again, he's going to bring a level of toughness. You got Kevin Morris over at Jefferson, who certainly is no stranger to competing. He's going to win with what he has, and whatever he has, he's going to pour into those guys, and they're going to play hard. I mean, you you have like a Clay Owen, who's a shooter for them, was going to be a senior. They're looking for him to bring in. But the thing about Jefferson, their football program is so good. He's not going to get a lot of those guys until after the football season. So you're going to have a lot of young guys, which is why we didn't get to see much of him this summer, because he has a lot of young guys who, they probably need more reps than
Yeah,
game stuff. So
sure.
he's probably in the gym, getting them stronger, getting them faster, whatever the case may be. You got you also have Oconee County. Oconee County they lost him. I'm trying to think of the name real quick, which is blanking on me. The sixth kid, Gavin Bray. You know, he's he's actually going to be there next. This year. As a junior. So the coach is excited. I happened to see him at a camp, and he's excited about just where his program is going. Because sometimes, people equate growth in the progress in your program based on your wins and losses. And some coaches, if you're inside and they know their teams, they're basing on what growth they see within the team. And Oconee County, is the one that's growing. You got Monroe area. Coach does a great job there, and being able to, Coach Strickland does a great job being able to put a team together. When you first look at them, they're not a team that you go, you know what, they're going to give us a problem. But then as the season progresses, he puts together a program, and a program that, when you look at their record, that's tall. Again, Coach Chuck Graham, who just got nominated to the Florida State Hall of Fame. He's again a guy, and even out in Augusta, is a name that many people know out that way. He's the head coach there, who is building that program and trying to helping those guys understand what competing is. And he certainly is pushing his best way to do it. I mean, they struggled. They went 0-10 this past year in the region, but I don't think there will be that this year. I think they'll get one. If I'm a betting man in Vegas, and GHSA don't get on me. I don't bet on high school sports, but but if I'm a betting man, I think they'll get one this year within the region.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the Bray Langston getting hurt definitely changes
Mm-hmm.
the outlook of that region. Um, and then, the Richardson kid leaving to go to Lumpkin
Well,
County.
because his dad took a job.
Correct. Changes East Hall.
Yes.
Obviously the Harrison kids sticking to football. Like those were their three best returners, arguably, who now aren't going to be there at the start of the year.
Well, and we also got to say this though. Think about this: the Harrison kid might go early. If you're the quarterback, you might go
Yeah,
early to get into
yeah,
that playbook down at Kennesaw State. So
yeah,
we don't know that either.
yeah. So it's
It's
hard to
honestly
tell.
it's up for grabs.
It
If I
is, And Cooper Glover, big name, returning to the region to pay attention to. Um, Troy Smith was probably one of the better shooters. I mean, we
Yes,
saw.
at West Hall, absolutely.
Guy could stroke it, and he hit some big shots. We saw them this summer, and Oconee County. I got to mention them because I think it's one of the best names in high school basketball in Georgia this year. They got a 2026 kid who's a really good shooter, by the way. Check out his stat line if you ever get a chance. Not sure if it's on Max Preps, but kid by the name of William Grayson Hockaday. Uh,
Yes, I've heard the name, and I was like, huh?
yeah,
Haka who?
the dude can fill it. Like he's
Nice.
about 6'2", but dude can. I mean, I don't know what his stats were, but the games I saw, he was filling that thing. So, and again, you mentioned really good coaching in that region. And so, to sit here right now on October 1st and try to say who's going to win this thing, you can't. Like, there's a lot of parity.
Look, going into the last week of region play, and like they literally were in a three-way tie at one point. And these teams were clawing it out, and then it came down to I think a coin flip after everything was done, or points or percentages. I'm still trying to figure out max scoring system on that, which I'm sure many of the coaches are too. But just being able to say, okay, you go and take the number, East Hall gets the number one seed, and yeah, they get to make a stronger run. Who's to say, let's say if Cherokee Bluff would have gotten the number one seed, what kind of run they would have been able to make. So it's just all about matchups, and that region, they beat up on each other enough throughout the year and throughout the region that you get to a point that you kind of want to exhale that you made the playoffs, and here you are facing with a tough opponent, or maybe getting sucker punched by a team you just really didn't expect to beat you.
Kind of like where we started with Region 1, right? Like, it's going to come down to end of the season, select few teams that are going to be neck and neck, and that's a lot of part of the really good storylines in 3A this year within the
Mm-hmm.
overarching of who's going to win it. Like, who wins Region 1? Who wins Region 8? Like, what does East Hall look like when Langston comes back? Right, all
Yep.
these different stories. Is it? Are we set? Last year was kind of ordained, so to speak, that was going to be Sandy Creek versus Cedar Grove, and that's the
Right.
final we got. And this year, it's kind of looking like a Cedar Grove versus Cross Creek. Well, will we get somebody else to knock one of them off? As a storyline that'll be interesting to follow. So, but 3A, a lot of good talent, and again, a lot of good players. The thing for me, when I looked at 3A, a lot of good shooters
Mm-hmm.
in 3A.
Yep.
And you don't always get that at every
No,
level.
not at all.
So, but any other last thoughts?
Well, the one thing about when you look at 3A, and again, we could do an entirely different show on the private schools and their playoff situation. We'll discuss that as the playoffs, linger forward, because I think that that's going to be important. But one thing that I think is going to you just literally touched on it. The team that shoots the ball the best may end up getting to this, surprising a lot of teams in their own respective regions. Because one thing about the region with the anomaly of at Cedar Grove and a few other spots, size, Calvary Day got size, GAC has size, but most of these teams are pretty much about the same size, and shooting, trading threes for twos sounds better than trading twos for twos, with a big inside and you don't have a big. So you
Yeah,
know, um, certainly looking forward to seeing what 3A team decides is able to step up and be able to knock down shots.
yeah, no question. That's definitely some good storylines, some good size, like you mentioned. It's some really good shooting. So,
Mm-hmm.
but thanks for joining us, folks. Hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, thanks for joining us, and we will see you on the court.